Hey, how's it going? This is Ron, internship at Columbia. I've met the founders at Columbia actually through one of the accelerator program called Columbia Build Lab that I had mentioned, I believe, in a prior video. But I'm here to just speak about the industry or the marketplace or space that they're in, and just dive in a bit on how that is making me rethink how I can build analytically something for them, like a marketing data engine that can help them to propel in the different media channels that may be more preferential to them. So I spoke with the founder, and I won't be like speaking on the name and still speak about the space and the niche that they are in. I definitely think it's going to be an interesting project to work on. And it seems like a lot of companies they're still technically in the peer-to-peer kind of space, peer-to-peer economy it's called, but sharing economy. We're still technically in like the sharing economy with like the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes and the Via. You're basically and essentially sharing a service or service sharing. So in Uber is you're sharing someone's car. With Rent the Runway, you're sharing clothes. With some other startups, basically, they're sharing. I've seen some that shares like tools, like hardware. Some are subscription to share or lend their cars and things like that. So it's crazy. It's still a sharing economy, I believe. So I think that they make good strides, especially if they think locally and small in terms of NYC and curate a lot of different items towards a small segment of this market, of this industry. So let's get into it. And transparency, I will be using AI for this. So I just want to give that fair warning. So let me just screen with what I intend to do. Things. Sorry, I'm just looking at which screen share I want to do. So let's just do this one. Put this one. So I'm looking through some of my old bookmarks. Actually, they got a jewelry rental subscription service called Flaunt. They have a haute couture rental space. I believe I wanted to do this at one point. I think Urban Outfitters also had one. Urban Outfitters subscription service for renting out approximately up to $800 worth of merchandise. It's also one of the companies I saw that has relevance to the startup I'm working with, which I'll just call C. And C basically is more focused on vintage, not new merchandise, new. But yeah, so let me share my screen. Sorry, there it is. And I'll get into it. Transparency, like I said, I'm using AI, this guideline of what I would like to speak about. So let's get into it. As stated, one of the most interesting project I think I'll work on in this summer is with the startup called C, and it's a company that's trying to just change how people access vintage fashion. So instead of purchasing rare designer pieces outright, the platform allows customers to rent archival and luxury vintage clothing that would normally be inaccessible to most people. And I'm going to chime in out without reading this guideline, but to also give context, it's not necessarily where I'm not sure if it's rare designer pieces that this platform is going to sell, but it's along the same line. So I just wanted to like not necessarily talk to and give too much into it. So we're talking about garments from like iconic fashion eras in the celebrity closets or fashion archives. And I mean, I would tell them, the founders, or suggest like, these are some things that I found in my research that when I actually conduct the actual statistical research, when I utilize TikTok for the API to do audience research and Reddit and such and see what users talk about, then I would definitely know if this is like more that we should get into. But nonetheless, what makes this especially interesting is that it's happening at the intersection of fashion, technology, and circular commerce, i.e. sharing economy. As part of my work, I've been researching the vintage rental marketplace, analyzing customer audiences, studying competitors like Rent the Runway, Depop, The Real Real, and Grill, and helping match that can connect these rare fashion pieces with modern consumers. So the modern appeal is people just at times just want the outfit. They don't want to own or purchase a whole fit that's worth $5,000. I'd rather just rent out a look. And when I was doing my research and, I was like, that makes sense. I don't even want to necessarily own $1,000 Rick Owens jeans. Maybe I just wanted to put it on for a look, for like a date night or maybe a shoot that I was doing, or overall just maybe see how it feels. Maybe I like it. Maybe I will get. So I think people are now in this age where they don't want to, sorry guys, they don't want to spend excessively on items that eventually they'll probably just stop wearing. So I've just, like I said, been exploring how communities form around fashion culture, where people discover trends and how brands can build awareness through content. Creators, events, and storytelling. It's been a fascinating look into how consumer behavior is shifting from ownership towards access, especially among younger audiences who want individuality, flexibility, and unique experiences rather than simply buying. Yes, like we live in this modern era, and I think this new generation is practically going to be not have that purchasing power as the older generation, just due to massive upheaval or potential upheaval to society when it comes to AI infrastructure, when it comes to those shifts in the economy. How AI will be, I'm not going to be a doomsayer and think something bad is going to happen, but it has those generations, those audiences in the next generation thinking about, okay, if I'm going to be replaced by AI systems, there's no point in going to college. So now it's more so cut back on expenses, So cut back on things that sure when I could just maybe rent it out for one look. So like that type of behavior is shifting in the consumption and consumer decisions. So what I ideally would like to build really is interested in like exploring during this internship how data and platform APIs can help this vintage fashion marketplace better understand its audience. So one of the challenges for a startup is figuring out where potential customers already spend their time online, or for clothing in person too. For a company focused on vintage clothing rental, the audience isn't gathered in one place. They are spread across platforms like TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, Pinterest, Substack, Discord communities, and niche fashion forums. Even YouTube comments and posts that you see like from these big fashion influencers to basically brands themselves having YouTube channels, comments like that makes it more so for community. So also I would say YouTube comments. So part of my research has been thinking through how we might use available APIs and platform data to better understand those communities. For example, with Reddit, there are thousands of conversations happening every month about vintage fashion, archive collecting, luxury brands, clothing rental, sustainability, fashion history, and personal style. So by using Reddit's API, it's possible to analyze discussion across relevant communities and identifying recurring themes, questions, frustrations, and trends. We could look at which brands are being discussed most frequently, what people are searching for but struggling to find, and what concerns customers have about versus buying. That information can help inform everything from inventory decision and content strategy. TikTok represents a different opportunity. While TikTok's API ecosystem is more restrictive than some platforms, there are still ways to analyze public trends, hashtags, creator activity, engagement patterns, and understanding which styles, aesthetics, or designers are gaining momentum can help a startup anticipate customer demand before trends become mainstream. For example, if there's a growing interest around 1990s Prada, early 2000 Robert Cavalli, or archival Jean-Paul Gaultier, those signals could influence future inventory acquisition and marketing campaigns. So not only will this, media/marketing engine platform be able to detect through conversations within the comment on a post or follow hashtags and see how people are interacting on the highest engagement posts, obviously with the most likes or most share and most comments, how they are interacting with who are they sharing it to or how they're sharing it. I can be able to basically detect a shift in where the vintage clothing fashions a Chanel bag. Or see a Chanel hat that's vintage and they like that. So next thing is, okay, so maybe which supplier do I know may have a lot of Chanel on hand and I can order that for the company to display and to show that early that we have in stock like 5 Chanel hats. That's what you want and get it now. Or maybe make a post about just that, like 5 or 10 Chanel hats in stock, pair it with an outfit. This is how we'll do it. What kind of posts will get more engagement? What type of style? So it could be like a DIY type post. It could be a IRL. It could be just a haul. So all those things is going to be incorporated into this platform, this marketing data platform. That's what I'm going to call it. And it's going to just be where I have the intended channels that I would think that the startup would be great on when it comes to building the community organically, and some of the ones that could be paid media, because I'm also following this funnel. I have to build a marketing funnel for them. So I'm also doing that to basically, I'm basically going to use the funnel in a way to help build this platform. So, and I've just been looking at like ancillary products or like ways in which they can help grow organically also. So one in the funnel, that the template that I was shared with, it was PR. So I see that one way a small company can maybe get into the hands of a PR fashion journalist through Twitter, right? So I've been evaluating like whether platforms like Substack are worth incorporating into the research process. Fashion writers, trend forecasters, luxury analysts, and independent journalists increasingly publish long form content through newsletters. So again, into newsletters and possibly doing a interview there. And unlike short form social media content, Substack often provides deeper context around cultural shifts, consumer behavior, and emerging movements within fashion. The question isn't simply whether people are talking about vintage clothing. The question is where the most valuable conversations are happening and how a startup can learn from them responsibly and effectively. What makes this especially interesting to me is the intersection between technology, community, and culture. Fashion is often viewed as a creative industry, but beneath the surface is also an information industry. Trends spread through networks to influence purchasing decisions. Data reveal patterns that aren't obvious to the human eye. Yeah, and definitely is just switching up this real quick. One concept that I've been exploring from all of this is basically an audience. I don't know what to call it. I was calling it marketing data or data system platform, but I've been exploring is the creation of, I would call it maybe an audience intelligence system. So a dashboard that continuously monitors conversation across multiple platforms. Reddit discussions could reveal customer pain points. I can utilize text analysis in this, and we use a sentiment analysis for categorizing what can be a negative comment, or can be a neutral, or what can be a positive, and then turning that into living being. And it comes to like a persona which I have to build. So it could show lively every once a week or so how this consumer may be changing, and this fictional persona could be changing, because I had to categorize that, and I'm just using concepts, but now I'm bringing data into it with this audience intelligence system. So newsletter content from fashion writers. The Reddit discussion could reveal customer pain points, right? TikTok trend data could identify emerging aesthetics. Newsletter content from fashion writers could service broader industry movements. And all of these information could be organized into a single view that helps the company make smarter decisions. Instead of reacting to trends after they've already to identify signals early and understand the communities driving those trends. For a startup operating in a category as specialized as vintage fashion rental, the type of insight could become a significant competitive advantage. Ultimately, this internship is going to give me the opportunity to think about a much data, storytelling, and culture to build a marketplace that feels both modern and deeply connected to fashion history. That's the challenge I'm excited to continue to explore. So yeah, guys, I think that wraps it up with this part of the internship, in which I'm trying, this second internship that I'm doing, where I want to really build audience intelligence system, a platform, you can also say, to just give as a deliverable to the founders so that they can make better, more informed decisions when it comes to posting, when it comes to going organically, when it comes to reaching their goal of getting at least 100 plus first access users, beta users, to test out their mobile application. So I believe that it will go like TikTok for AI. TikTok for developers, where I can use the research tools to discover the type of content that certain hashtags have when it comes to the different posts from different users. And even for the shop, TikTok shop, to see what is selling when it comes to vintage clothes. Even with Facebook Marketplace, using that too. And I think Facebook has an API. But yeah, and the Reddit documentation too, as stated. So I think it's very much going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see, to help initially build this web interface. I want it to be a web interface. They can have an access code and go into it and start building out, curating different influencers they may like, follow the aesthetic, building them their brand. I think it's going to go good, and I want you guys to follow along with me as I head into this and become better at coding, becoming better at research, becoming better at strategy. Update you guys for sure on it. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one.